For the first time in nearly 15 months, Tom Aspinall, the undisputed UFC champion, is back and will defend his title against Ciryl Gane in the main event of today's UFC 321 pay-per-view taking place in Abu Dhabi at the Etihad Arena. And this card is just spectacular. All 5 fights on the main card feature top 15 matchups, and this is the first time we see a heavyweight an undisputed heavyweight championship defended for the first time since November of 2024. As we know, Jon Jones refused to fight Tom Aspinall, was offered a big contract, and he vacated the title because he didn't want to fight Tom Aspinall. He retired, and at a press conference in June in Azerbaijan is where Dana White announced that and announced Tom Aspinall as the new undisputed UFC heavyweight champion. So although Tom Aspinall didn't get here the way he wanted, he didn't get the fight against Jon Jones, he didn't get to win the undisputed title in the octagon, he still is the undisputed champion, and he still is arguably the most dominant fighter in the UFC today. I know he hasn't fought in a while, but this guy is just been on a streak like we may have never seen before in the UFC. He's 8-1 in the UFC with 8 finishes in the first 2 rounds, and he's 15-3 in his career, and all 15 wins have come in the first 2 rounds. 14 of 15 have been by first round finish, and although his name is already in the heavyweight record books, Tom Aspinall is averaging 4.0 knockdowns per 15 minutes, the most in UFC heavyweight history. He's also averaging 8.07 significant strikes landed per minute, the most in heavyweight history, and he has a 5.18 striking differential, the most in heavyweight history. So although his heavyweight run hasn't been long in the UFC and he hasn't fought in a while, Tom Aspinall is already on a historic pace, already doing things that we've never seen been done. And also another fun stat to look at is that Tom Aspinall is fighting Ciryl Gane. The last 2 undisputed heavyweight champions, Francis Ngannou, Jon Jones also fought Ciryl Gane. Francis Ngannou was a plus 120 underdog against Ciryl Gane. Jon Jones was a minus 170 favorite when he fought Ciryl Gane. And Tom Aspinall right now is a minus 345 favorite against Ciryl Gane. He is minus 280 to win this fight via finish, and that is why I think Tom Aspinall is going to beat Ciryl Gane. I think he's the better striker. I think he's the better all-around fighter, and I just think that his pace that he fights with is going to be the difference, and I just think he's on a different level than Ciryl Gane, and like I said, he is such a big favorite in this fight, and that is why if I had to choose one way to back him, from a betting perspective, I would get Tom Aspinall to win in the first 2 rounds, which is minus 150. Although that might sound crazy, Tom Aspinall has just done that to so many guys in the past. And until somebody can stand in there with Tom Aspinall and really show that they can test him, I just don't think anybody will. So that's why I think he's going to beat him, not only by finish, but in the first 2 rounds. Rounding out the rest of this card, it's a good one. In the co-main event, Virna Jandiroba is taking on Mackenzie Dern for the vacant women's strawweight title after Zhang Weili vacated to move up and face Valentina Shevchenko in November. Mackenzie Dern beat her back in 2020, although that was a couple years ago, and Virna is actually the hotter fighter. She's won 5 straight fights. I think Mackenzie Dern's going to win this fight. She proved back in 2020 that she is the more well-rounded fighter, and she can use her athletic ability to her advantage, and that's why I think she'll get the job done on Saturday. She is a minus 148 favorite. That is Mackenzie Dern. Moving on down the card, Mary Bautista, who's riding an 8-fight win streak, is taking on Umar Nurmagomedov, who's coming off of a loss to Merab. And although he's coming off a loss, that was the first loss of his career. I think that this is going to be a fight that's going to be a lot closer than people think. Mario Bautista is a plus 455 underdog. Umar is a minus 625 favorite, so I think that's too big of a gap because I think Mario Bautista is a really good, well-rounded fighter, but more times than not, we've seen it. If you back the Nurmagomedov family, you're on the right side more times than not. And if I had to me, the best value in this is Umar by decision, just because he's such a big favorite, and his last 2 wins were by decision. 3 out of his last 4 were by decision, so that's why I think that's the best value there. Alexander Volkov taking on Jailton Almeida, and what could be a #1 contender fight to take on the winner of the main event between Aspinall and Gane. And I think Jailton Almeida is going to beat Alexander Volkov. I think his ground game is the difference in this one. Although he is smaller than Volkov, who's 6'7", I think Almeida is just the more aggressive fighter. And I think when he is aggressive, like we've seen him in all the fights besides his fight against Blades, as he's 8-1 in the UFC with 7 finishes, and he's finished 21 of his 22 wins. I think that his ground game will be the X factor in this one. I think he will be able to take Volkov down, and if that's the case, Jailton Almeida finishes guys very quickly. He is in this fight a -190, and rounding out the main card, it's Alexander Rakic, who's looking to get back in the win column for the first time in 4 years against Asmat Mursakanov, who has won 5 straight fights in the UFC, holds a 15-0 record. But something that was noticeable on paper and even more noticeable in the face-offs on Friday was just the size difference by Rakic. And also Rakic, although he hasn't won recently, he's lost 3 straight fights. He's lost to Jan Wachowicz. He's lost to Magomed Ankalaev. He's lost to champions in his last 3 fights. And I just don't think Mursakanov is on that level right now. And I think Rakic will be able to use his size advantage to his benefit to get the best of Mursakanov in this one. So I'm going with Rakic, who is a -115 in this one. Those are my picks and predictions for UFC 21, the main card, which starts at 2 p.m. an early start time today on the East Coast. Thanks everybody for tuning in. I'm Ryan Wohl, and I'll see you next time.